Hello, everybody. Welcome again to Counselor's Couch 101. I am Jim Stump. I thank you for your comments and your emails. I think we all benefit if we get these little videos to be interactive. I want to talk about the things that are pertinent to your life now, the things you're going through, and the things that have shaped you and the experiences you have gone through as you're growing up and becoming the person you are. I think that can benefit all of us, right? Um, Recently, someone said this to me, and I remember hearing this long ago. It's an odd sort of a saying that sounds a bit funny when, on the surface of it. And it goes like this: We grew up in different families together. We grew up in different families together. And at first glance at that, it just seems kind of ludicrous because we're all there with the same people in the same room going through the same experiences as a group. But the thing of it is, one guy grows up in a family with three younger brothers. Another guy grows up in that same family with three older brothers. Completely different experience. They say it can be hard being the firstborn, and that's for sure. But there are also benefits and privileges of being firstborn. Some people think that genetically, the older siblings receive better input genetically from the parents than the younger ones down the line. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's worth thinking about and seeing if there's any sort of a correlation to your life, if it was true for you, that is. I remember a story. A lady told me this going back a long time ago. She said, I don't think she had 4 or 5 siblings, and their father had been gone for quite a while, right? He wasn't in the picture. And finally, one night he called up. Out of the blue, he called up. And he just wanted to talk to the kids. He wanted to connect. He didn't want to talk to his ex-wife. He didn't want to get into an argument or start anything at all. But he did want to say hello to his children, hear their voices, and let them know that he was thinking about them, and etc. When that call finally ended, the mother, she called all the kids together in the same room, and she started grilling them. What did he say? Where is he? What's his plan? What's he going to do next? And etc. Apparently, mom was worried about things. I guess she's worried about what he was going to do to her and the family. I don't believe he has been sending a financial support over the years, and she was sort of concerned what comes next because it's been very difficult for her. Well, this lady told me that all her siblings started ganging up on her dad and saying all these negative things about him, projecting what he might have been thinking or what might have been wanting to accomplish by the calls and the comments and all that. All negative stuff just heaping up and heaping up. And this girl at the time, she said, I didn't feel that way at all. I wanted to connect with him. I wanted to see him. I wanted to spend time with him. I wanted to know something good about him. This is my dad, and I missed him all my whole life. And they're all saying these horrible things about my father. She said she just shut up like a clam and she sat there silent. And no one asked her anything. No one even noticed her as she sat there listening to all this negative talk about the father that she wanted to love. She said, not only did it affect me then, but, as we grew up over the years, it became something that we didn't talk about. Not because we couldn't bring the subject up, but because she knew how they felt. And she knew if she brought something up, she was going to get a negative deluge that she did not want to have to contend with. She wanted to have positive memories of her father if she could. She wanted to find positive experiences in their past, family vacations and etc., things that had gone well that she could hang on to. She wanted to love her father. She didn't want to hate him. That's an experience of it. Another way this plays out, I don't know if you've ever gone through this, but you go to school. Kids, live in a neighborhood. They're probably going to go through the same school system, the same schools. So the oldest sibling goes into the school system, goes through the school and the grades and so forth, and the teachers meet that person and they get some sort of a sense of who that person is. And then the second sibling comes along and the teachers see the second sibling, comparing it to the first and seeing the similarities and expecting family sorts of similarities to be expressed in the second sibling and the third, and so on and so forth. And usually somewhere along the way, some teacher will say, How come you aren't more like your older sister or your older brother? How come you aren't good at sports like your brother? How come you aren't good at math like your sister? And it has an effect on the person who was down in the pecking order in the family, did not receive the sorts of moral and emotional support that the older ones got. And they're feeling slighted. They're feeling hurt by these comments from teachers and others who don't know what they're doing to that child. It was a different family for them. Remember, when we're coming up in a family, the older ones develop quicker because they're older, right? And so if we have a 10-year-old who is the oldest sibling and a 6-year-old who's a sibling down the line, the 10-year-old can do physical things that the 6-year-old cannot. And so that 6-year-old can learn, possibly learn, um, to be down on her or himself as being not as good as the older sibling. It doesn't make any sense to us as adults, but as kids, we feel that. I'm not as good as my brother. Look at him. He can catch a ball. He can throw a football. He runs fast. I can't do those things. And if you receive any sort of negative feedback from siblings, particularly older ones, that it affects you because you think it's true. I'm not as good as my brother. I don't run as fast as he does. I don't play all the sports he does. I'm not as good as him. That's the kind of negative mindset that I've mentioned in a lot of videos because there's a lot of commonality between issues and circumstances and things that go on in people's experience and in their self-thinking. There's a lot of commonality. You might be diagnosed with one disorder or another, but that doesn't mean that a lot of it isn't the same across the spectrum, right? So we look at those things, we try to say, how can we fix this? Most often, we want to look at the negative thinking that's going on. When we stop and think about ourselves as being one of the younger ones in the pecking order in the family that we grew up in, we stop and realize what happened to us. Maybe the older siblings weren't trying to be cruel. They were just being children. They didn't know any better. And they would say things to you, call you a name, or make a comment like you can't do that, and it affects a child. The child grows up thinking, I can't do these things. I'm not as good as my brother. I'm not as good as my sister. And as you all know, I'm sure, that kind of thought and relationship lasts a lifetime. And to break out of it is most often nearly impossible, right? But we have to cope with it somehow. It would be really, really wonderful if the family, or at least the siblings, could sit down and talk about these things. But that rarely happens. By the time the youngest one wants to gather the tribe together to have that conversation, ideas are pretty much cemented in adults who are around, say, 40, or maybe even a little bit older than that. The ideas are cemented in, and oftentimes they don't want to hear a different perspective. They don't want to open up and grow. They don't want to talk about the things that they went through that caused them to treat their siblings the way they treated them, because it's painful. They were hurt too, right? They had their bad times too. If they start talking about it, they think that's going to have to come out, and that's not what they want. So it's hard to redo this stuff with the family, not to say that it can't be done. People have to be courageous and brave in order to sit down and talk about it and realize we're not here to blame one another. We are here to make our relationships better and to understand one another. I often tell people coming into therapy, I say, look, we don't come here to complain about your mother or your parents and like that. That's not the point. The point is to understand what framed and what shaped you so that you can decide at this point in your life whether you want to continue doing the things that you've been doing or you'd like to make some changes or possibly improvements so that you can be happier. So that's the point. We're not here to tear the family apart. We're here to understand it. And with understanding, we can let go of some of the negative reaction we have to people and things. And not only that, when we do these kinds of exercises, even if it's only a person and a counselor, we open up our understanding of the world at large. And when we deal with other people who are not family, we can sort of appreciate more what they're going through and not have to react negatively as to say to ourselves, I'm not as good as that one. Or, anything negative that might come up. You stop and think about that and say, I know where that's coming from. I don't have to put myself down today. I've learned how to not do that. Just an idea. So, did you grow up in different families together? Please drop me a comment, or even better, send me a long email. I'm not going to mention your names, etc. But if you give me permission to read your email, I will do so, protecting you all the way. I don't want to cause any disruption for a person who participates. But if we share these ideas and discuss them openly in an open forum like this, we can all benefit. So, did you grow up in different families together? I'd like to hear your comments and your observations. Thanks for stopping by. I look forward to speaking with you next time.